Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 200. I almost can't believe it. 200 podcasts. That's almost 900 altcoin reviews. And just a couple months away will be the 4-year anniversary of our mastermind community here, which goes all the way back to April 2021. And honestly, it's wild how time flies. 4 years. Wow. Now, as some of you are aware, I have a really special presentation cooking up behind the scenes, and it's set to release in just a couple days, right before the Chinese Lunar New Year, the Year of the Snake. And that's what this new presentation will be dedicated to, the Year of the Snake Decoded, covering everything you need to know for this year of 2025. And just to let you know, this will probably be my most mind-blowing decode I've ever released, and I don't say that lightly. There's some serious gems in that decode, so I bet you don't want to miss out on that. And there's going to be a lot of different things covered in it. Probably has 3 full decodes within one decode, if I really had to be honest here. So get ready for that. I'll likely have it released here on Patreon for our mastermind community on January 28th or January 29th. The latest. So you can look forward to that new release coming very soon. And also for this week's Red Pill podcast, make sure that the altcoin voting system, you guys are not submitting anything that I've covered in the past 2 to 3 months. And I say this because even just last week, some of you were submitting Stellar Lumens and XDC and VeChain, and these are projects that I covered in that podcast, so I don't understand what's going on. Please just follow those basic rules. If I've covered it within the last 2 to 3 months, then don't vote on it. Otherwise, it'll get skipped over, even if it gets a lot of votes. But just keep that in mind. I explained this very thoroughly in the last Red Pill, so I don't want to take any time with that today. And just wanted to get that out of the way. And if you're having any trouble figuring out when I covered an altcoin in the past, just use the search function. It's either on Patreon or you can use the search function over on Discord. And if you need any help with that, you could go ahead and just ask in a comment inside of this, and we will help you out. Somebody will reply back to you to let you know how to do it. Okay, so as for today's Red Pill, we will be celebrating our 200th podcast, focusing on this upcoming Lunar New Year in just a couple of days, which aligns with the exact day the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell will be hypnotizing the market at this next FOMC meeting, where he'll speak on January 29th, literally on Chinese New Year. This will be next Wednesday, the day of Mercury, miércoles, Mercury Day. And remember, Mercury is the god of fiat money, the god of, some of you call it fiat, but I like to pronounce it the way Alan Greenspan says it. Fiat, like fight, because it's all about war anyways, isn't it? But when it comes to this concept of fiat money, that is 100% what the Federal Reserve represents. And this is why they do these FOMCs on Wednesdays. This is what it represents. It's mercurial. And for this Lunar New Year, the moon will also be in the sign of Aquarius. And of course, there's nothing more Aquarian than cryptocurrency, which is what we're focusing on here. And utilizing Gematria, we can start to break this down a little bit more. We have Aquarius giving us 107, but really I want to focus on this 21. Some of you have been following my work for a decent amount of time. You know that whenever we see that 21 connection, it's big for crypto, and you'll probably hear why in a moment. But Aquarius giving you this 21, and when we look at the day of Chinese New Year, which is the 29th of this year, 2025, you'll see that it's a 21 standard date numerology. So we have Aquarius, we're talking about the moon, we're talking about lunar astrology. Of course, it's the Chinese Lunar New Year, so we care about what the moon is doing on this particular day. And the moon will be in the sign of Aquarius as we're entering Chinese New Year timeframe. So we have synchronicity there. And to add another layer, you can also consider that Uranus and Saturn are co-rulers of Aquarius, as above, so below. And when we're talking about this 21 connection, and we just mentioned Saturn a second ago, well, this is what it ties back to. It ties back to Saturn, and you can see that 21 there, also in multiple ciphers. And this Saturn connection also ties back to Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi is Saturn, and this 21 code is all over Bitcoin as well, since its genesis. Just like the exoteric supply of Bitcoin is 21 million Bitcoin. It's done like that on purpose. And even Uranus, who again, another co-ruler of Aquarius, gives you this 23 in Chaldean, and Bitcoin equals 23 in the same cipher, so they're tied together. Uranian essence is very much Bitcoin as well. So plenty of connections to this upcoming Lunar New Year in Aquarius, tied to cryptocurrency, crypto, which is the Aquarian essence down to the core. And what's even more wild about the moon being in Aquarius, let me get back to that connection with the 107 that I brought up. Well, wood snake also gives you 107, and that's the specific year that we're going to be moving into here, January 29th, 2025, the year of the wood snake, giving you a perfect match in gematria to Aquarius, which is what that moon will be in the sign of. So we have not only the connection with the 107, and we have another one with Aquarius, and that is this 35. So you'll see down here, we have Aquarius, wood snake, 107, and 35s. So multiple connections in the same ciphers. So it's even more powerful when that's the case. When you're practicing gematria, you don't want it to just be numbers all jumbled around. If it's in the same cipher, then it's definitely something to pay attention to. When it's in the same cipher and mirrored, that's also something that could be helpful for you. So you could see Mercury here giving you the 23. You mirror the 23 of 32, and you're seeing that down here in Serpent. All right. So getting back to this, and this connection to the wood snake specifically, then we want to go back to when the last year of the wood snake was. And you probably have heard me talk about this recently, especially if you watched my Year of the Dragon Decoded. I talked a lot about the dragon year and tying it back to 1964. So we want to go back to the last year of the wood snake, which started in the very beginning of February 1965. I'll be doing that over here. I've also redid this whole chart for everyone where I've synchronized it to be with all the snake years instead of the dragon years. So that'll be really cool to go over in future red pills. But I'm going to be covering it pretty in depth inside of the Year of the Snake Decoded presentation also. So we're here at 1965, the year of the wood snake, and we're going to be focusing on this period right here, which are the final days of the year of the dragon. Again, we're looking at the S&P 500. We couldn't possibly look at crypto that far back because it didn't exist yet, at least not on the world stage. It was probably existing somewhere in like a deep underground military base cloning facility that controlled by the New World Order. No. Anyways, getting back to this, I want you to pay attention to the last week of the year of the dragon as we're transitioning into this green box, which will be Chinese New Year. So that would be the start of the year of the snake. And you notice how the pattern here is that once we got to about January 22nd, January 23rd-ish, right over here, we started to break the prior highs that were coming in that were before the election, or sorry, right after the election, excuse me. And that's a cyclical pattern that we had for this election year too, that we did not see in all the other dragon year elections. Because remember, dragon year will always be an election year no matter what, because of the year that it lands in. So we saw typically when you looked at the dragon year, we would correct into the day of the election and then continue to slide further into like mid-November, about 10 to 12 days after the election. But in 1964, what we did was we rose into and past the election, topped out after it, and then had a correction into mid-December. That's exactly what we did in 2024 too. So it's pretty amazing. Let me go over here and show you. We had the market move up. We passed, pretty much we were moving up through the entire election cycle, and we continued into very early December, technically. And then we had a correction after that. It's the same thing we had over here, correction into the December timeframe. And what's really important to mention is how we didn't recover until around 22nd, 23rd-ish of January after the inauguration. Well, that's exactly what Bitcoin or what the S&P is doing right now. We literally hit a new all-time high on the 23rd, as you can see, after the inauguration. V-shaped recovery. It's like magic, right? So we're pretty much there, hitting new all-time highs into the final days of the Year of the Dragon. And if we check in with the S&P chart, you'll see that's mimicking perfectly what happened back in 1965, and I believe that's important for us to consider because the whole move we just analyzed for the S&P in Q4 around election season, you'll notice it was also nearly identical to 1964, the year of the Wood Dragon, which we're wrapping up this week, 60 years later. And another thing to point out, if I zoom out a little bit, we were to go to like the weekly chart for the S&P. I just want to show you like this bearish divergence that we're getting right now is really gut-wrenching. But as we learn in Investing 101, the market can stay irrational way longer than you can stay solvent. A good JMK quote. Essentially, the market doesn't care about your opinions or your feelings, and what you've learned here at Waters Above is that what actually runs this market is gematria, numerology, and astrology. Essentially, the market doesn't care about how you're feeling right now. And no matter what you're going through right now, that's another thing that's really important to hit home with, because what we tend to see, especially around election years, is they're very polarizing, right? You have the masses are caught up in politics drama, and the market is a huge opportunity usually in those years and also the year after. And I caution people all the time in my work to not get distracted. Of course, there's going to be funny things that happen along the way, like Elon doing what he did the other day. And everyone wants to talk about it for a couple of days. I get it. It's fun. I like to have fun too. There's cultural moments all the time. We had the Trump coin last week. I mean, I haven't really been keeping up with that chart, but I'm almost certain that if you look at when I recorded that podcast and you look at the price today, I believe it's the same. So there was this huge run up and then big correction right after the inauguration. And you heard how uneasy I was when I was talking during that Trump coin decode. I felt pain because I knew what was going to happen to retail. And I get that some people did do really well with it. But the problem here is that the average investor has no clue how to navigate meme coins. They don't know how to navigate these smaller time frame charts. And also, this wasn't catered to crypto people. This was given directly to the world stage via the president of the free world's Twitter account. This wasn't like some back door, it was only promoted on Coinbase type thing. This was like from the man's Twitter account telling everyone about the thing. That's really dangerous. So again, it is what it is, but these are distraction years for many. Because it's not just the U.S. election year in 2024. It was the election year across the board for many countries. I forgot how many, but I believe at least 80 plus. So obviously, the most polarizing and most popular will always be the U.S. election for whatever reason. And the same thing goes for the Federal Reserve and what they do. And they're, even though they don't actually have anything to do with the U.S., they're a private company and they can do whatever they want. Jerome Powell is technically, I guess, his own boss. I'm not sure who tells him what to wear that day or what to eat or anything. I'm sure he has some interesting handlers. Who knows if they're even human? Have you guys seen that show Severance when they're talking to the board and you can't even hear anything on the other side? It's just static. It reminds me, there's another movie I forgot where it has John Goodman in it, and it has to deal with some alien invasion, and the alien species obviously doesn't speak English, but it has some sort of human translators that work for government. That's probably the people telling the Federal Reserve what to do. It's just like hissing noises and oh man, okay, I gotta move on. But this is a Red Pill podcast. I have to have fun too. Bigger point here is that there's too many distractions in election years. That's what this all sums up to. Now, getting back on the rails here, I know some of you guys like when I have those moments, but getting back on the rails here, the fact that the S&P had a month of resistance, checking in on the weekly chart, had about a month of resistance right over here around 5,800 level, and then it pushed through it corrected with this back test over here into the January full moon with a bounce into this upcoming monthly close is a clear sign of not only a tremendous amount of speculation with this type of move, and some can say, well, Waters, we're all looking at the same chart, right? Because that could be another layer to what's going on recently. Like everyone is looking at the same supports and resistances. Like a lot of people are catching on to what's going on right now and are getting savvy with TA. And, like this is not like esoteric at all. We all have computers. We all have access to the same TradingView charts. I mean, you could get this stuff for free. And, well, what I say to that is, isn't it interesting that we're doing the exact same move that we did back at the end of 1964, 60 years ago, when literally no one had a cell phone yet? That didn't come out till like almost 20 years later. And it didn't even have like a display screen on it, really, from what I remember. It was just a button. It looked like a home phone that you could walk around with that was massive. And the personal computer industry began in like the late 70s. So over like 10 years later. But yet the market was behaving the same exact way as it did during the same exact Chinese year, Chinese lunar year, over half a century ago. So again, it's just up to me to study the patterns and the cycles and tie that together with the exact elements that make up those patterns and find out what they are. And the only way to do that is to keep my emotions out of this game and remind myself that a market works just like nature does. It has cycles too. Humans have our own cycles, whether that be the grandiose cycle of birth till death or everything that happens hormonally in the body, growth cycles, getting older. We see what happens to the body as we age. Everything has cycles. And what's unfortunate is that the human and only the human emotions, because it's not the dolphins' emotions that dictate the chaos in our world. It's not the penguins to blame here, but the human emotions of fear and greed specifically that push us into the extremes that Mother Nature was going to shift us into whether we like it or not. I suppose a great way to explain this is with weather modification. We know what's going on, and for how long can they keep doing it until there's a serious ecological disaster? I'll let you decide. Again, humans being humans is what this adds up to, and you're in a market, and a market is comprised of humans. It's called market for a reason. It starts with Mars, god of war, right? And it's just my job to be neutral in my observances so that I could do what's best for my people. Now, getting back to this 1965 year of the wood snake S&P 500 chart, you'll see that right after Chinese New Year, which is right over here, the market did have a tiny little correction into, I believe, the full moon. There it is. So perfectly from literally the new moon into the full moon. Sorry, Chinese New Year into that following full moon, to be exact. And the pullback that we had, it actually came right back into the golden pocket, holding support around the 702 fib on daily closes. So that's really interesting to know. And then we actually held sideways all the way until about mid-April, and we pushed a little higher into the May new moon before the biggest correction that the S&P had in over 3 years, pretty much going back to this correction over here. It was even more of a correction than the Kennedy slide, which happened over here when JFK was assassinated. The market corrected more over here than it did then, just so you know. And if you look at the timing of how this all went down, you see right over here, I have it marked. It says total solar eclipse and that blue dot right there. So if we really, really zoom in and pay attention to this move, you'll see that we actually topped right before that eclipse. And then the correction got way worse after that eclipse. We were to look about 29 days, 28 days before the market was starting to top. And then it took until about literally exactly 4 weeks later to bottom. So keep that in mind, because our first eclipse of this year is in March, meaning this mid-cycle correction that could be happening similar to this could very well be happening in the month of April this time around. And following the FOMC meeting, which is after this upcoming one on the 29th, Chinese Lunar New Year, The following one will be on March 18th and 19th, literally less than a week from the upcoming total lunar eclipse, which starts our upcoming lunar cycle. Remember, right now we're at the tail end of our solar cycle. Now, one thing that we need to point out, though, is the cyclical nature of Bitcoin, and specifically for all the years we end up topping out for the true cycle peak. And that's the years of 2013, 2017, and 2021. All three examples 4 years apart. And also 2013 was the year of the snake, and the only year of the snake that Bitcoin has ever traded through. Again, when we do this with the stock market, we have many iterations. I believe we have at least 10, 9 or 10, going all the way back to the start of the Great Depression, which, by the way, was in the year of the snake. Just so you know. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to sharing this year of the snake decoded. It's going to be wild. So yeah, getting back to 2013, we want to look at the Bitcoin chart. We want to look at the daily, turn this over to Bitcoin index as we are here, and go all the way back down memory lane, 2013. So the pattern that I want to point out is for 2013, 2017, 2021. And you'll see that into this big surge, it happened into early April. And if I was to turn on the moon cycle indicator, would you look at that? The April new moon on the nose. God, isn't it nice to know about this stuff? So we moved up perfectly into the April new moon before a really dramatic correction, by the way. Fucking 80%, guys. 80%. That's not a joke. And look at the velocity. Like, the speed of this correction was 1 week. So yeah, crypto can do this. What the stock market might take 28 days, crypto can literally do in 1 week. And we never went lower than that. Even with this lackluster kind of curve that we had into July, we never went lower than this. So the harshest part of the correction happened instantaneously. And I want you to think about this, because this could very well be how it plays out, where some people are not going to expect the speed and the slide of the correction. And just think, we're in a very volatile time right now. We're in a very strange time. And a lot of people are super stoked about this Trump situation. And I'm not talking about the meme coin. I'm talking about the guy, or it, or whatever it is. And has anyone really paid attention to what he's done over the past week? Like, I think it was within 48 hours, he got up on camera and started announcing that plan they have for the US becoming pretty much the world leader in AI and robotics. And it was like Ellison, Massa, who else? Sam Altman, the trio. They got up together. These are fucking billionaires, by the way. I don't know if Sam Altman is, but he's definitely network. Whatever he holds in any of his companies is, yeah, whatever the valuation is, it's in the billions for sure. But we're talking about like the apex predator squad. You can clearly sense that Trump doesn't even know who Sam Altman is. But there's a video you could all watch on this. It's amazing that within the first 30 minutes of the video, he exposes everything that the Patriots said wouldn't happen. And he's admitting that they're going to funnel in all this infrastructure, all this money to build all of this infrastructure for artificial intelligence, and you know it will be for humanoid robots. And because he has Elon on his side with this whole Doge thing, you know Tesla is making humanoid robots, and that shit has already been introduced to us, and there's a lot of them that are already built and complete and ready to deploy. So if things get weird, that's the card they're going to pull, and now nobody can deny it. So this whole idea of the new evolution of our world moving into the Aquarian essence, it was going to be Kamala or Trump. It doesn't matter. That was the plan all along. And now they have us really in this interesting situation where what is everyone going to do when the layoffs start kicking in, right? Last note to say on this, because I don't want to be doom and gloom, but it is important to say as soon as possible, is Trump during this speech, and if anyone wants to find it and share it in the comments, please go for it. During this speech, he mentions that they're going to be creating 100,000 new jobs. And he like smiled and made it sound like it was an amazing feat. Do you understand the country of the United States of America has how many people? 370 million? Like, I don't know. I might not be accurate, but say over 300 million people. What is 100,000 jobs? This is nothing. That 100,000 jobs will create humanoid robots that will then, and artificial intelligence, that will then take away millions of jobs. So what's the play here? I mean, I laughed. Usually he's a good liar. I would have at least expected him to lie, to be like, we're going to create 10 million new jobs. And then we could all go, oh, that's amazing. But he didn't even. He just said straight up 100,000. Dude, this is nothing. This would be maybe amazing in like Latvia. Like, but in America, this is nothing. He just talked about how he wants to fire 88,000 supposedly hired IRS employees. Like, that's the comparison here is amazing, right? Because how many people are working for the IRS versus the whole population of the United States of America, and you're picking out 100,000. Yikes. So the plan is right in front of us. The agenda is not hidden at all. They're telling us what they're going to do. They admitted that USA will become the AI and crypto capital of the world. And Trump is down day one to make it happen. So all the weird transhumanist shit that you guys have seen in either things like Black Mirror or all of these weird, all of these movies, all these series lately, that was all documentaries. None of it is fake. And if you're worried about what I'm saying right now, again, it's just maybe a healthy reminder to watch who you give your energy to, because all the people that got happy and thought that this was all going to go our way, and they're like, well, they got rid of the CBDCs and now they're bringing it. You understand? The CBDCs are just one element in this whole thing. It's the jobs that matter the most, because it's the jobs that give humans purpose and a reason to live. Think about this. Think about this. Anyways, let's move on. April, new moon top for Bitcoin. We have this happening in the year of the snake, and then we see this really arduous long-term consolidation period that goes on that doesn't move up until pretty much Q4 of the year. I don't think it's going to be the case necessarily this time around, but we are working with a pattern right here of the month of April, and that's kind of what I want to get into. So we have January 2017. Right here, we have the January full moon correction, which we just experienced here in 2024. You all knew about this in advance, and I called it out to occur because it was a cyclical pattern, not because it was Waters Above's opinion. It was because it was a cyclical pattern, and that's my job, to just reveal that stuff to you. So we got that. We saw the recovery thus far. We're doing pretty good. We're actually even a little bit higher than we would have been comparatively, but the dump wasn't as violent this time around. It was decent, normal, right? Which is to be expected when Bitcoin's trading at $100,000, right? So getting back to this play here, you can see that we pushed up all the way until March. We did have a 33% correction, funny enough, topping technically on March 3rd, 33%. You see? Now, with this 33% correction, though, we got bought back immediately and actually traded higher into the month of April. So that is something to keep in mind. But this was during an eclipse season, as you can see here, third solar eclipse, and that was a solar eclipse during a solar cycle, and that's different from what's coming up in March this year, which is a lunar eclipse that starts our lunar cycle. Whilst here we were still in the midst of not even the final part of the solar cycle. Well, we're in that now. So, and notice this crazy liquidity event right here on March 10th, 2017. So keep that date in mind, March 10th. But regarding this whole move, you'll see Bitcoin corrected and pretty much bounced immediately right there, just like it did during the C19 crash, which also happened in March. Also like the correction that happened in 2023 with Silvergate and Silicon Valley Bank, also off of March 10th in the month of March. So kind of what I'm doing here with you guys is, remember, we've been talking about the March lunar eclipse for a while, and I'm giving you an idea that this could be how it goes. where it's not just a crash and it's the end of the world, that it's a crash, but we recover off of it fast. And that's been in my play here since I created my crypto decoding blueprint, which talks about a double peak cycle, the idea of us moving higher into August. And this is always what I've been saying. So for those that are brand new here that are getting confused, it's likely because you either don't have that crypto decoding blueprint, which is completely fine, or you're just too brand new to have gone through enough podcasts, which is also completely fine. So maybe spend some time looking through it, because I've been getting this question a lot about March, and this is hopefully going to clear that up today, everything we're reviewing. Okay, so you see the April correction that we had in 2013, it was crazy, super fast bought, and it did not get bought back up into the following May. Whilst here we topped in March technically, and then we had this correction in March, 30%, by the way. If Bitcoin was to correct 30% off of here, we would be at, let me quickly check in, just so you know the price. And let's be fair and take it off the absolute top, just for those that want to see it. Yeah, dude, a 30% correction would be 76 fucking K Bitcoin, all right? So for the people that don't understand what this would be like, the speed and the velocity of it to happen in a similar fashion, it would feel like the world is ending in crypto, all right? So it's not like 30% is big, especially when you're looking at a market cap of something that's $2 trillion. I'm not saying it's going to be like that. I'm just letting you know. If we had it happen from here, which I don't think is to be the case, I am bullish on February for those that are absolutely brand new here and are not caught up with our work, talking about moving into the February new moon, which we have about a month from today. So I just want to show you that this move was pretty violent, and we have back-to-back examples of April actually being officially higher. And also, this was when Bitcoin was officially moving into price discovery in April 2017. So like the 4 years prior, Bitcoin was higher in April than in March. Now, lastly, we have 2021. But before we get into that example, remember that March 10th date that I just told you about? And we're zooming in now to 2020, and some of you are well aware of the exact date. The WHO declared C-19 a pandemic was March 11th, literally right after that full moon in March. And look at how we bottomed on March 13th. Well, this year, we have our solar eclipse, or lunar eclipse, on March 13th during Purim. And we topped actually last year on March 13th. And we didn't recover for almost 8 months. This is not something to be taken lightly. Now, if that wasn't enough March 13th corrections, let's get back to our last bull run from 2021. And would you look at that? Guess when we topped out? March 13th. Just crazy, man. Now, what's very important to mention is that just like back in 2013 and 2017, Bitcoin did in fact push higher into April. Before a much more dramatic pullback. This is about a 56% pullback from top to bottom. And then we didn't recover from that top in April for 6 months, half a year. So half of 2021 was us dealing with this bull from the highs that were planted in April. All right. And in 2013, it was almost the same. It actually took Bitcoin 7 months to push higher than the April top. And why this example especially is so significant is because it was the last year of the snake in 2013 that we were just talking about. Topping in April, big correction, 7 months of sideways before recovery. So all 3 past cycles, Bitcoin was technically higher in the month of April than in the month of March. And in all 3 of those iterations, we had a noticeable pullback around this exact moment, with 2017 being an interesting example since we got a 30% correction immediately. Like right here, I think it was only like an 18%. Yeah. So it was a much deeper, harsher correction, actually more similar to like this one. And then we immediately recovered off of that and kept pushing higher. So there are obviously differences, and that's to be expected as this asset grows in market cap and as more altcoins enter the conversation, right? Because back in 2013, it was pretty much nothing. Then 2017 was a big epic alt season, first time, and then 2021, a lot of us lived through that. So, that was like the NFT game, lots of DeFi, crazy shit coins in that cycle, Now this cycle, it's even worse. It's even worse. It's like you wake up and it's Martha Stewart smokes blunt with Snoop Dogg coin. Peanut butter fish stick sandwich coin. Uh, you know, like it's unbelievable. And it's like all on the Solana blockchain, hilariously. The coin that lost 95% of its value in the last cycle. Just imagine what it's going to be this time around. Fuck. I'm not here to pick favorites. Sometimes I like being funny, but like this is a different cycle. It's going to have different elements to it. When the president of the United States makes a meme coin, we're in a different cycle. Like we didn't get, like Joe Biden's sleep apnea mask coin in the last. I wish we did. I probably would have went heavy in that. Would have de-risked my whole XRP position for that one. Anyways, 2017 is very, very special because if I go into the Bitcoin dominance chart, you're going to see why. It's cool to see actually the cliff drop off over here. That's what made 2017 special right here. So you see this flat line? And then it was like, look at the dates at the bottom. We get to March, April. Okay. So we fell off this. Bitcoin dominance started collapsing. And then shitcoin mania took off, right? And that was our first like truly epic, recorded, paid attention to alt season in crypto history. During that cycle, Dogecoin had like a 15,000% run up. XRP went up 10,000% after this Bitcoin dominance reshuffling happened in April 2017. Just such craziness was going on back then. And when we look back at the Bitcoin chart for 2017, let's get back to that. Right over here. You'll see that right here, this moment where we started breaking out again, we had a little bit of a pullback on the 14th or so, kept running up all the way until June. This was like the crazy alt season, this whole moment here. I don't know if Bitcoin can just keep doing this for all of 2025, though. That would be mind-blowing, right? If it was to be the case, and it would then would have outperformed our last cycle, right? Because our last cycle, we made it up to probably like what would be equivocal, just so you could understand. About 200% higher than the last cycle peak. And this time around, 200% higher would be 100, and it wouldn't even be a 200K Bitcoin. So for us to like literally mimic 2017, which I don't think we'll do, we would have to be pushing into like the $300,000, $400,000 Bitcoin. And that's what aligns with the stock to flow, which again, I have a hard time accepting. I think there would have to be some fucked up thing happen in the world, like wheelbarrow money. I saw this really funny meme somebody posted where it was like, if you held the McChicken from 2020 to today, you would have outperformed the NASDAQ. It's like, that's what's like fast food from the #1 fast food chain on earth is hyperinflating. It's crazy. Anyways, let's catch up to speed here. I just want to show you that there's something very cyclical going on with the rotation concept, even with altcoins. What Bitcoin did in 2013, which is over here, this cycle, what Bitcoin did in 2013, XRP did in 2017, over here. 2017. And what XRP did in 2017, pay attention, is what Dogecoin did in 2021, right here. And for this cycle here in 2025, it feels like everything is starting to balance out a little bit where, for instance, Doge is kind of like, it's pretty high up, but it's below all-time highs. It's 100% or so away from retesting all-time highs, as you can see. And XRP is missed out on the last cycle, and you could see that XRP is really, really close and primed to break out soon into price discovery. You know, Doge got all the glory in the last cycle, and we're seeing XRP become a big part of the conversation this cycle. And then a lot of the exoteric elements are coming together too, right? Like Brad Garlinghouse at Trump's inauguration and taking pictures with him and Stuart Alderati. And like, this is kind of like setting the stage for the Aquarian age, getting all the big technocrats that are in blockchain technology to be brought into the White House, which was always the plan. Remember, Ripple was before in San Fran, they were in DC. They were in the belly of the beast. So, and I'm sure they're still there, just we don't know it, you know? And then those guys are hired by NSA and people in intelligence. So Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson and these guys, they are hired by these agencies to be a part of this project, and they call it Project Ripple. But it's actually going to be called something way different on their end. It's probably called Project Phoenix or Project, Oatmeal, Project Scottish Oatmeal. You don't even know, guys. Like, it sounds crazy until you watch 10 years in the future. You'll see some CIA document leak, and it'll say exactly what I said, and you'll be like, how do Waters know? And it's because I've studied this shit, and it's nothing different than what they did in the 1950s after World War II. It's nothing different than what they did in the 20s post World War I and moving into this quote-unquote roaring 20s scam. You know, it was not good for everyone. It was really shitty, actually, and they just, Hollywood turned it into something to teach you about something. But none of your grandmas are even alive to tell you a story about it, right? Because they would have to be literally 100 or at this stage, you know. Anyways, my point that I'm making here is everything is optics and everything has happened before, and intelligence is the one that's picking the players on the chessboard and where the pawns, and you're facing the opponent in a sense. So knowing how to navigate that whole game is what allows you to become rich. Follow the money, not the theories and not the conspiracy theories for sure. Anyways, I'm not sure what ETH is up to right now. It's just farting somewhere in the corner, too much Taco Bell. But if you actually look back at Ethereum in the last cycle, I think it was like a 10,000% move if you bought on New Year's. You could, like, right here, shit was $9, right? Crazy. And you sold on New Year's. So that was the good time to be in ETH. Last cycle was pretty good too, but a really gross chop on that double top, that Christmas tree vibe over there in this rollover that we had. Anyways, it's a much clearer pattern that we have for the months of March and April. And this says that April is historically a top month for Bitcoin. And when we look at Bitcoin seasonality, we can see that's also the case. April being the second best performing. We could pretty much tie it for first with November. And remember, the first Bitcoin cycle in 2013, Bitcoin topped in November. In the last cycle we had in 2021, Bitcoin topped in November. Interesting, because November is so deep into our lunar cycle this time around. It's making me kind of like feel that I want to see how it goes into May. I can't say this now, but what I'm thinking is if Bitcoin can push into like 130 soon, or like 120 to 140, let's just give it that range, and then it peels over into like 90 or 95K, and then it just keeps recovering, having these 30% corrections. We could mimic 2017. We actually could. And then the lunar cycle theory isn't necessarily invalidated. It's just we don't have these crazy bear markets for Bitcoin anymore. Because how can it have those bear markets when retail doesn't hold it anymore? You guys got to think about that. Retail was holding it solely in 2017. Remember, they created CME in December 2017. They literally created the Chicago Mercantile Exchange like the fucking week Bitcoin hit the top. All right. We just got ETFs last year. This is like a whole different world now. And I'm not trying to say this to promote Bitcoin, but I'm letting people know that if Bitcoin was to have a 30% mid-cycle correction right now, what do you think happens to an altcoin? That's still going to bring these 50 to 70% corrections for altcoins. We've had altcoins lately correct 50 to 60%, right? So if that could happen, then what do you think? I mean, I probably can't fish for too many examples right now, but I'm sure I could at least find one. Let me look at, the Jasmy play. Look at this. 60, 50% already, right? And like Bitcoin's not even correcting because Bitcoin dominance hasn't rolled over yet. But then when Bitcoin dominance rolls over, then we'll see Jasmy pump in a straight line, probably 200%, 3, 4, 5 days in a row. It'll go up 1,000% total or whatever. And then you'll have everything doing that pretty much at the same time anyways in the alt season. Then when we correct later, it's not going to go deeper necessarily. So I'm feeling that Bitcoin may be actually a little bit like the 2017 vibe, just not exactly identical. You know, I got to be careful with my words here because I know this is a big community. A lot of people are listening to me, and I'm not trying to be theoretical. Like, I've shared my thesis. I've just gotten to a point now where I think some people are too strict about it, and it's not going to allow them to have a very solid exit strategy. We're trading for numbers here, guys, not dates, right? So if we see Doge hit $3, you should probably not sit around waiting for some $7 target that you learned from a YouTuber, you know, unless it's in your analysis too, and unless it makes sense to you. And if that happens soon, great. If it starts happening as we're passing through the lunar eclipse and I could tell technically that we have a little bit more juice in the fruit, I'm not just going to sell it because of that day. You need to have an exit strategy. One or the other isn't an exit strategy, right? Like when you're making a meal, you need to have other components. You don't say I'm making a sandwich and then there's no bread. And then it's like, well, what's the sandwich part then? You're eating the filling? And I think that's what I want people to realize here. We're combining gematria, numerology, and astrology with technical analysis, and we're using that to create our exit strategy. Don't just take one and leave out the other. They need both in harmony to make sense. So another thing to mention about April is we see this to be the case also with the Dow Jones during non-election years. So don't pay attention to these red bars, just pay attention to the blue bars. And we have April, this big blue bar, pretty much tied for second best performing month, just like Bitcoin is the second best performing month. But what you need to keep in mind is that this data is only covering monthly closes, not what happens in between the month. For instance, when we pull up the monthly candles for Bitcoin, we can see that in the April 2021 top, that was your April candle. Yes, we technically hit the top, but we closed the month of red. And then this was leading into a deeper correction. We had a 30% correction also in 2017 in the month of March, right there. In the middle of them, it took like 7 or 8, I think 10 days. I showed it to you a little bit earlier. So even at this higher market cap, we could also get a 30% correction because we saw from March of last year down to the swing low, we had a 30+% correction from March to August. Bitcoin can still do that even at higher market caps. And if you look back at the 2017 bull run, which was right over here, if I was to look at this on like a daily perspective, you'll know that we actually had 5 30% corrections along the way. This is where it starts. 1, 2, 3, 4, and even this, I believe, is exactly 30% or maybe even more. Yeah. So that was 5 along the way up. It's very tough to deal with that kind of volatility. So I hope you have an exit strategy and I hope you know what you're doing here. As I said, if we can repeat this 2017 cycle, I think it would be an absolute gift. Will it happen that way? I don't know. And perhaps another element that we can't disregard is the fact that in 2013, in 2017, and in 2021, we were not doing this moving up and up and up during a lunar cycle. The lunar cycle started here and we moved into a downtrend. The lunar cycle started here and we started the end, the beginning of the end. The lunar cycle started here and we went into a downtrend. It wasn't that the lunar cycle started and we just kept going up and up and up like in 2017. It's not the same energetically. That's why I'm very careful about this. But perhaps one thing we can consider is what we were doing in 2017, and it's something I brought up a little bit ago, which I'll turn on the weekly 21 EMA. It's this orange moving average. Imagine we were to move up to, let's just say, 130K Bitcoin and then have that 30% correction. You see where it would put us is around 90K. I pretty much exactly said this a little bit earlier. And that would be backtesting the 21 EMA. That was what we did all throughout 2017 too. You could see right here. We just kept hitting the orange moving average over and over again and bouncing. It'd be great if we could do that this time as well. Backtest the 21 after pushing higher, trap a lot of longs, and then off of that bounce, trap a lot of bears, liquidate as many people as possible. So the New World Order just takes more of your Satoshis. That's what they love to do. And then that'll be the alt season, crazy alt season vibe. And it would make the most sense for it to kind of be completed before the end of this year. I don't think it can make it all the way to January 2026 like January 2018. I don't know about that. That would be unbelievable. But the messed up thing, guys, is we made it up all the way till January 1966 before we went into a devastating correction for the stock market that didn't recover all the way until almost a year and a half later. A lot of data to work with, but we're taking this one thing at a time. So just food for thought. We'll need to see how Bitcoin moves into this upcoming monthly close to make sense of all of this and to determine how this next phase is likely to initiate, because we have to be honest here that volume lately has been super low. Of course, it's not fair to maybe judge over the weekend, but volume has been pretty low across the board. And what I would like to see is these type of volume injections kick in like we did in early November. That'd make me feel a lot more confident. And then another thing to mention is that even though volume is super low right now in general, we're actually able to look back at past election cycles and point out the fact that the week after the inauguration is typically boring, just like this week has been. So let me show you that quickly. We have 2021. Which feels like an eternity ago. And you have right here, we're on the daily chart. This was the inauguration. We have like a week out. We were bottomed by the 27th. So just keep in mind from the 20th to the 27th. And then we kept it moving. You'll see that we were pretty much bottoming out as Joe Biden was putting on his presidential pampers. Now let's go back to 2017. Gives us another thing to analyze. April. We're here. Inauguration week, we have from the 20th right there, and we're going over to about the 27th, and you'd see we're pretty much sideways. Nothing going on, right? President gets in office, Donnie, and sideways, and then we start to move up pretty much after February, the start of February. So keep that in mind. And since we're about to move into the month of February, let's check in with the monthly chart and see how we're gearing up for this January monthly close. Starting with the monthly chart here for Bitcoin, and then we'll move into ETH. Looking legitimate, looking gorgeous. Monthly chart for Bitcoin looks awesome. 12% up on the month. Let's see where we are with Bitcoin seasonality. 11%. Oh, interesting. Literally exactly what it's always done. So that's cool. Remember the 37% in November? Just crazy. Nothing to say here. We're looking great. Let's look at RSI. Ooh, is this starting to clear now? Yo. Yes. 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 March. We're going higher. I don't want to, I gotta relax. Sorry. It's just I have a big altcoin bag and I know what this does. You know, I know what this does to the altcoins. So this is the top of the last cycle. Just so you know, we were at 90 RSI. 91. This is the top of the December 2017 cycle, 96. This is the top of the November 13 cycle, 97. So you have 97, you have 96, you have 91, and right now we are at 76. So we have a lot of room to go. 200K Bitcoin, please. Yes, I'll take it. Would be amazing. Quarter million Bitcoin would be insane. Like, where does that stack on the milestones? I don't know. I think it will at least be. Will it be over Microsoft? I don't know. I'll have to do the maths. Doesn't really matter. It's kind of egoic to care about this shit, but you know, some people like the information. But clearing this March peak on monthly RSI at 76, and right now we're literally at the same level, 76.4, which we will, as long as we just hold this level. So I think if we could close above 105, that would look amazing. And when we look out at the candles, we're, what is just a continuation candle. So believe it, keep it simple. Let's look at the weekly close for Biddy Bitcoin. All right, we'd be potentially closing into price discovery. So if we can hold this level of 105, that would be great, because the highest weekly close we have so far is that really awkward one we got in December. And then remember, we topped on December 17th, and everyone was like kind of catching on to the pattern, and people thought we were going to repeat the 2017 pattern, and great, we didn't. But anyways, yeah, you can see right here that we had a closure at 104. Here we're about 105. So get above 105. I think that'd be great. And we did technically push a little higher for an all-time high, but we want to see daily closes. We want to see actual price discovery. And that's not what we're getting right now. We're just getting a shit ton of resistance actually at 105 for Bitcoin. 105 to 106 has been a clear wall, but we have a nice W pattern here. The W neckline has been back tested on many daily closes and even some 4-hour candles, 8 hours and 12s, and we're bouncing. This does look like a really awkward, like rising wedge pattern, which again, I'm not a big pattern trader because I don't believe in them with crypto. I think they work until they don't work, and they have like a 50% execution rate. So unless you're somebody who's really dialed in on like smaller time frames, you're looking at like 4-hour or smaller, there's no need to be getting lost in the sauce with all this shit. It's the same thing like the diamond pattern people started coming out of nowhere last week, and I'm like, where are you learning this from? Where are you learning this from? You know? So yeah, like everybody wants to be a pattern trader, and I think that I don't want to sound like negative here, but I think from the influencer side of things, for the few that are like the ones that are very much influencers, but they do a little TA, that's what they trap a lot of new people in with. Like, it's all the pattern trading stuff. So like getting you to just follow pennants, triangles, you know, inverse head and shoulders, like that's all good in the hood, but like you need to learn horizontal trading ranges. You need to understand when we're getting a little toasted on some oscillators, you need to know how to navigate these moving averages too, and moving average crosses. And you can't just be falling for the basic ones like the death cross and golden cross. That's shit's old news, man. Like the people who run this market, they know that you're looking at like 5 things max. And yeah, that's why the big gem of couple weeks ago was me talking about the Bollinger Bands on the 3-day chart and the cyclical pattern that we were seeing there for the move down into the January full moon and the pop above this 20 simple moving average, and then getting back into the top of the band as they were squeezing together, which is the literally same thing we had this year. So last year, this whole push from October, where you see we had the October solar eclipse, we got above the red moving average, the 20 SMA, back tested it, and then rode the line all the way up until we moved into 48K. January, though, that's really important to point out. We have October. Same move. Rode up all the way until January. Rode up all the way until January. Now we are kind of coming off this whole recovery phase. We're bouncing, we're moving into the month of February. So what we would want to see on the 3-day is not resistance on the topside band, but a 3-day close above the topside band. So just keep that in mind, guys. If we can close above 107, or let's call it 108, we would likely be pushing into the next phase, which, by the way, ended in March. So could that be synchronistic and we're just repeating the same exact fractal? We have all this sideways chop, October eclipse, pump, come back down to back test the bottom of the band, pump into March. Same thing. Sideways, October eclipse, back test the band, pop up higher, January, get below it, pop again into March. Be amazing. And I haven't looked at this in too many other iterations, but I'm assuming that there's something here. to consider without getting so fancy and knowing TA like we do. Let's look at the daily chart. Keep it simple. I mean, everything's looking good right now. Wolf cross 8 above the 55. We now have a big development, everyone. We have the 8 at the top, the 55 below, and we have the 13, 21, and 34 all in bullish posture. So these moving averages are now the way they should be. Again, that was how they looked after the October eclipse. So everyone's like, oh, the October eclipse, like they didn't care about it until November. But the problem of waiting and waiting and waiting is a lot of people then FOMO'd after November. Why do that when you have knowledge that's being given to you like what, 7 months in advance? How many months in advance did I tell people about this October eclipse? I can't even count. It's been a year, right? So like this is really dangerous to wait and wait and wait when then you have to FOMO in later because you're in crypto, which doesn't give you a chance to get on a moving bullet train, right? We're seeing that. We're going to see that so much over the next couple months. So just a warning, you know, words of wisdom. The confirmations can be seen much earlier and earlier and earlier without having to wait for an exact price move. Anyways, this W pattern is looking really bullish. I'm going to go ahead and assume there's a move up here to about 120. But I do have something drawn up over here that I want you all to see. I apologize if it's a little bit messy, so I'm going to take you step by step and then we're going to move on. But I have a fib pulled from over here at the 2024 top of December 17th, and then the fib is pulled down to this low on the January full moon. We're going to be turning this setting on. And what we're seeing here is that instead of looking at the parallel channel that I had last week, which was here to here, I made the whole parallel channel extended down to the recent retests at the lows. And now what I'm seeing is this heart line, this dotted line has been a support flipped resistance. So I like it more like this. It's a little cleaner. Then you see this one line right here is basically just showing you that we had a major pivot point at the highs. Then we had a lower high rejection, which pushed us slightly lower and then definitively lower, but with no closure or reversal signs. This is how a W setup goes. Then when we popped above this line, when I zoom in, you see we got above it, then back tested it. This white line is very solid back test, very clean. The green one is me just looking at very small time frames. So this is like my version of going deeper and deeper and deeper. And I'm just explaining the mind that I have while I'm doing all of this stuff. Not, again, solely relying on trend lines, right? There's a little bit more here to consider, but this is that diamond pattern that everyone was waiting to kind of break out the bearish. And then, you know, anyways, I don't care about it anymore. Do what you think is best for you. Pattern trade, but don't worship patterns. That's all I'm going to say. Like there's definitely times where you can get down with patterns, but what I tend to notice is that people are like, it's an inverse head and shoulders, and then it becomes a head and shoulders, and then they're like, oh, but then it's becoming, and it's always transforming, when in reality, the horizontal trading range could have told you all of that, and you have to, and it would probably help you more in advance, and it would help you be calmer and not have to wait so long and long and long and stare at the charts all day. See, because if you're somebody who does pattern trading stuff, you have to actively stare. You literally have to actively stare all day. Unless you just want to load up your phone with notifications and that, what, I don't know what kind of life. Again, if you're a professional trader, if you're a day trader and that's the kind of thing you're into, then go for it. But we're not in Forex, guys, and this is definitely not stocks. This is like penny stocks on steroids. It's the worst. So every time you think you're a genius with a pattern, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then it keeps getting worse. And then you have to stare at screens more. And I don't think you're educating yourself at all then. Anywho, we do have a little bit of a pennant breakout. We've been back testing it, but I'm not spending too much of my calories on this. What I like to see is the fact that when I zoom out, we have our fib. We've been getting back above the golden pocket. And I do suspect this W breakout will follow its breakout target, which sits us at right about 120K Bitcoin. And what I did was I measured from this high down to this swing low over here. I put it right on top of the neckline, which you can see over here, and it's getting us to about this 1618 target. So it's perfectly in alignment also with the top resistance of this parallel channel. But Do we extend higher than that and consider the March 14th date, which I have marked right here, and Bitcoin could actually get as high as 134K? That'd be incredibly symbolic. So the reason I say this is because if you look at the date of November 10th of 2021, some of you might remember this, we hit top on Pi Day for Bitcoin, the 314 day, 3.14. So 134 is an anagram of Pi. And also look at the date. It's March 14th, 314-143, just like you would look at it internationally. Could that be syncretism? Am I being like a tinfoil hat? No, I don't think so. I think we have technical reasons why we can make it that high. I'm not trying to make a call here. I'm just saying I think the technical call is around 120 and then extending up if Bitcoin really wants to fuck with everyone and top on that exact time frame like we did back in 2021, like we did effectively in 2017 too, before having that 30% correction. And then look, if we were to have that 30% correction, it brings us to about 93K. So we wouldn't even break support. We would be fine. We'd just be back testing. Also, this red line, I know it seems kind of random, but again, this is just one of many charts that I use. It's taking from the double top of 2021, and it's showing how lately, once we got above it, we've been just riding that trend line. So that would be another thing I would keep in mind for everyone, is there could be some alignment with getting back to this trend line again if we were to have another swipe up. And 30% correction in 2017 could be equivocal to, I'm not equivocal by market cap, of course, but like I'm not expecting Bitcoin to make a 37% correction like we did back in 2021. We got a couple of those like 40% corrections. Maybe what we do is we get to like the 130 area and we only have that 25%. Fair, right? Hold our higher low structure, no break of structure. But on the extreme side, back test the 1618, which is from this fib pull over here. So you see, I have this fib pull from March 13th to the swing low over here of August, and it puts our 1618 around 94. That would be a sick play. Make it up to there, come back down to this low 90K zone, mid 90K, let's call it, and then that's when alt season initiates, and that could be pushing alt season then. But it's not to say that we would be lower after that correction in March than where we are now. Like we could be much higher in March than where we are today on a lot of these altcoins. So the thing is that the accumulation time is pretty much up. And yes, of course, if you're somebody who's rotating later, where you're de-risking or taking profits, and you want to rotate back into altcoins from the Bitcoin play, that might be a chance for you. Again, we're going to have to see the energy then. We're going to have to see how it goes. So let's move into quick Ethereum outlook. And then, by the way, guys, I think I'm going to probably dedicate next week, unless some fucking crazy thing happens in the market, I'm probably going to dedicate next week's podcast to like the beginning, at least, to XRP. So I'm not going to spend too much time on XRP today. I kind of wanted to give the most energy today to this Chinese New Year and what to anticipate moving into the end of the month, which is going to be ruled by the energy of Bitcoin. And then have that more dedicated XRP podcast because you all voted on it. So still do the same voting system for the 4 to 5 altcoins that we'll do next week. It's just in the beginning, I'm going to spend a lot more time on XRP than Bitcoin to kind of just diagnose what's going on right now. And again, I mean, fuck, by next week's podcast, XRP could be at $4. As for Ethereum, we still have this clear triple top in the micro going on around the 888 fib. So until ETH breaks the 888 fib, what are we going to say? There's no new updates. We can't be wasting time on this. It's kind of like the Solana thing right now, where Sol did have a couple of days to, couple of days of fun. And then it popped right back down, and then it came right back up, and it's sort of just trapped in that prior all-time high zone, which, by the way, I think will break through very soon. But this was all due to the Trump coin launch, right? So there's that. Built on Solana blockchain. I don't know if homie's using Solana on any of his background stuff. I believe he is using Aave, which was a smart play for me last cycle. I mean, I'm doing very well on it this cycle. Then we have AVAX. I do believe there's something going on over there too. What else has happened? What else is happening for Trump? What other ecosystems is he using? What are they? I'm not sure. I'm trying to like avoid putting too much of my energy in that shit, like especially after what I just watched happen with this Trump meme coin. within 48 hours of the inauguration, that's unsettling. That's really lame. Anywho, getting back to prior all-time highs for Sol, looking good off the bounce on this parallel channel. I'm not doing TA and Sol today. We're trying to wrap up ETH. We're coiled up, man. This shit's ready to pop. So I suspect ETH needs to catch up soon. It'll probably have a decent February. Let's check back in with February 2021 and see if there's anything going on. And yeah, pretty much we made it up to, let me guess, the February new moon. Yep, so we hyperextended a little bit past the new moon, which is something Bitcoin does too. Let me remind you guys of that. Bitcoin, for whatever reason, it loves to push past the February new moon. Well, if we push past the February new moon in this cycle, then that would put us into like the beginning of March, since the new moon is pretty much the last couple days of the month. Interesting that it does that. We have 9 days past the new moon. Let's look at Bitcoin in 2017 and see what happened, just so we could have some sense of understanding there. Yeah, about 5 days past it. So what's the new moon this time around? Let me check in. We have the 2070. Okay, it's 3rd, 4th, about the 5th of March. Yeah, I mean, that would be spot on. That would get us the March move. That would line us up for the March correction. Everything would kind of be in alignment then. Anyways, I don't want to speculate too much. I've given enough information. ETH is looking okay. Not much of an update here. We're just coiling up a lot. Clearly, they're suppressing it, holding it down. But that's what ETH does. It kind of moves very late. Let's get to XRP. What's going on with this chart over here? Alrighty, so big update for XRP. As some of you are aware, we have had more daily closes above $3 for XRP than we've had above $2 in 2018, which was all over here. Now we're like at the 50 or 60 day mark for $2 closes for XRP compared to last cycle. We only had 9. So we are still pretty much on track here. If you look at where I said we are here, we're right there at phase 1. If you look at the green line across the screen, you'll see it's cutting through the 1. We're there. It's like we just need a little push, and there's going to be the craziest FOMO you've seen in this shit. Because everyone is a hater on XRP until out of nowhere they're worshiping it. And I saw this all 2 weeks ago. Every moon boy and his mom shows up out of nowhere talking about XRP. It's like, this is lame, man. Nobody was there talking about this thing until recently. Don't talk about shit when it's up. Talk about stuff when it's down. That's how you help people. You can't help people when it's already... Anyway, whatever. I don't care. It's not even my job to help people necessarily. I'm not trying to posture myself as a helper. I believe I am kind of doing something unique here because I'm trying to get you all to be self-reliant. But I just don't like when people jump on bandwagons, you know? Like they just all of a sudden start talking about something. I have to talk about it because people want me to decode it usually. But we've been in XRP since the day I started my channel. The first video I ever made was about XRP. All right, so we're kind of just in that final moment, and that's really why I think it would be best to dedicate next week's podcast to XRP in the beginning, especially seeing how it could go with the next move up. But like you see this resistance we're getting at the top of this one spot fib extension. I know some people think that the technical all-time high is like $3.80, and all-time highs should not be judged by wicks, especially if they only happened on like 2 exchanges. So a majority of exchanges for XRP, it was 330, and the highest daily close ever was 275, I believe. So let's just quickly check in with that and make sure that we're speaking facts here. So we have right here or right here. Highest was 275. Well, we've been closing dailies above 275 like all week. So we are in price discovery, guys, for XRP. This is all daily closes. We've now had, what, even a fucking 5-day close. We've had a 5-day close at 314, a 5-day close at 310. This is all like, we're there. We're just kind of, yeah, we're struggling to break through. And that is actually kind of normal, especially on something that's been suppressed for so long. So yeah, we're probably just going to need one push from some whales, and then the party begins. the real party begins, because I know XRP holders, including myself, would love to see a big push into price discovery. I did not anticipate it in the last cycle, which is why I took profits pretty much when I launched my YouTube channel. But this time I do feel like it's the case. So hence why I have not sold any XRP. Only last time I sold was over here, this move up, and it was to buy back in and get more XRP tokens. But that's a trade that happened July 2023. That was the day the SEC big update happened with the case where Judge Annalisa Torres said that XRP is no longer deemed a security. Let's move into these altcoins because we're going to talk about XRP a lot next week anyways. Corium. Okay, what's going on here? Sorry about the noises. It's a plane passing by every 5 minutes. Oof. All right. So Corium went lower since the last time I did TA on it. Is that a legitimate move? I don't know. September, it could very well be. I'm just going to adjust the fibs a little bit more. We have over here the CoinGecko all-time high and then a huge discrepancy with the coin market cap all-time high. So I'm sticking with the 70-cent level because I could clearly see some data here. We have a little crown top, BART head. We have a couple of pushes into the 70-cent range, and we've now been dealing with that for 1,000 days as our, let's just call it macro resistance. Now, Corium off of the October pivot is now up 250%. That's nice to see. A full move of about 600%. So that's really also good to see. But now we've also been experiencing about a 55% mid-cycle correction. A lot of altcoins have been doing this lately too. Look at where we're at though on the fibs. We have a backtest on the 0.5 after swiping through the golden pocket. I like to see that, because it tells me that we're in something called a backup phase. We had here was our, I could actually just teach you step by step. So there's an educational moment here using a Wyckoff method. We have our buying climax. Here would be your selling climax. This sharp move right there into the golden pocket would be called your automatic rally or automatic reaction. And then right here, this is a textbook spring. It's not the type of V-shaped spring you're used to getting, but like it's like a textbook spring you'd get in stocks, or the typical Wyckoff method when you're studying the schematics. So this is a spring where you do go lower than your selling climax, but it's an amazing opportunity because the same way you did this AR, you do again, but even more violently. And that's the case this time too. So yeah, fuck man, buying the solar eclipse of October was an amazing move for most people. We have quite a chop though going on. It's hard to do TA on a project that has such limited data and is in price discovery to the downside. So that's one thing to mention about Corium. It hasn't cleared 70 cents yet, so this whole range that we're in is just lower highs technically. We need a trend reversal, and I suspect if we are to have a trend reversal, the first big move to see would be around 330. Which is fucking amazing, right? That would be a 1,000%, 1,000 something percent move. I'm not saying it will absolutely go there, but I guess I have a suspicion that if we could break $1 as a psychological level, it'll just kind of flow with everything else. And you can see those more extreme pushes to the upside. As for this $11 thing, there's no data that I've found for this. It's just on CoinMarketCap, for some reason, they label it as 11. And this is the best chart I can find available to me, where it was launched on May 2nd, 2022, which by the way is a really weird, oh no, sorry, that's a lie. Excuse me. April, late April. Cool. So yeah, like just backtesting the 0.5 is nice to see after this move up here. We're in a backup phase, and what the backup phase looks like is we kind of bowl out. Instead of here, we became like a BART head or like a distributional top. Here we have more of like a bowl. So it looks like this. And then when it rises, sometimes it could do one of those where it like back tests either the 702 or the 786. Just keep that in mind. That's the likely move. And there's also a W pattern here too, where you have your neckline, you have measure move. Clearing you above that high would be solid, but it's the 888 and ultimately 70 cents. When you're looking at a coin like this, 70 cents you want to break and then it should just straight line to 1, and it could probably break straight through to 2, depending on the energy of the overall altcoin market. I gotta say, this is not like my favorite looking chart, but one thing I do want to let everyone know about is like these are the types of charts that if you have some conviction in some investment thesis and you want to get involved in it, and you're already involved in it, then like there's no point of selling right now. Just hold throughout this alt season. Don't get fancy trading this stuff right now. Just hold throughout this alt season and take profits as you go. Like people sometimes take what I say about projects, whether I'm joking about it or I look at like a really bad chart. And usually one of the things I say whenever I also look at bad charts is like, well, you got to understand, like we're in crypto and we're in the alt season. So we're going to see nonsense, like absolute nothing, do amazing, right? And it's not me trying to deter anyone from an investment opportunity. I'm not going to look through all of these projects. It's impossible. I have to cover 4 to 5 every week. I run multiple businesses. It's just impossible. And also, it's usually a distraction. It's better if you guys study that stuff and share things amongst yourselves in the community. Because if that's the type of investor you are, then great. I'm an esoteric investor. So it's not in my like bandwidth to be putting my energy into what is exoteric. Again, it's not to deter anyone from doing such because everyone has different passions. I rather play the guitar. I don't want to learn how to build guitars. It's just whatever your flavor is here in crypto, follow that path. Some people are really techie and they want to learn how to code and they're interested in the blockchain technology. I'm not. But it doesn't mean that that is me telling you to not get involved or follow your passion. Don't follow my opinions. Now we're looking at Casper. Wowee zowie, this went lower. Holy moly, I was not expecting this to go lower. My firmament dome, though, is like the coolest creation to happen in cryptocurrency, though. So sick. You see this? I don't know the last time I covered this thing, but this shit went lower. Wow. Somebody was making a noise about me after one podcast that I did about Casper, because I was talking about the chart and I was talking about how this is in price discovery to the downside. And I don't like, by the way, if I showed you this in linear, what does this look like in linear? Let me turn this off. Oh my God, this is so bad. That's what linear chart looks like for Casper, by the way. Just so you know. Like, have fun. You need to look at it on logarithmic. Horrifying. Yeah, somebody got mad at me for my TA on it, and it was just like, yeah, like this is not something I'd be putting a lot of money in. Have fun with it, but I can't believe it went lower. Like, I don't want these things to go lower, guys. That's not my point. I'm just doing TA. But yeah, this is bad. How bad can this get? Oh, it could get so bad. It's not even recovering back into like, yeah, dude. I don't know what to say. Like, I'm at this stage in the cycle where people are taking everything I say so fucking seriously, like so to the heart. And like they don't know my personality because they're just finding me or whatever. And I just can't be too cautious with my words because then it would be exhausting for me. But this is not good, like just perpetually going down. This shit's down 80 more % from May 2023. Yeah, dude, I don't know. Like, what is there left? Sure. I mean, fuck, if it recovers back to the peak of 24 cents, then, like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, damn. This is rough. This is rough. This is rough. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I got to move on. It's just like, where do you really begin? It went lower. It went lower. See, like, one thing I want to say, please listen from the heart right now. Okay? Listen from the heart. All of these things that are tied to the XRP conversation took you away from buying more XRP. Like, because you were chasing some other thing. I bet you that's what this is tied to. It almost has to be, because I could tell by the votes, you could have just bought more XRP. You didn't have to buy this stuff, man. Anyways, let's move on. Flare, it's the same conversation. It's like you could have just bought more XRP. Like, okay, cool. This thing is up 80% from the pivot low. But like XRP has already done that move higher, you know? It's like up 200 or something percent since the election. These things, like, I don't want to be a dick, but I think they're just distractions away from you just investing in more H bar, XLM, XRP, XDC. Like, you should be not getting so lost in the sauce here, because there's no proof that these are going to do the governance style play that you saw with like T Fuel or Vitho. Like, they just don't have that zest, you know? Like, those coins do, but this doesn't. So I don't know. I don't want to sound like I'm being negative. I'm glad that we're covering these though, because I'm being a real one here. I'm letting you know how I feel, and that's all I can do. So yeah, like, cool. If you bought the absolute low of October 2023, you were up 215%. But like, what was Bitcoin's move from the low? Bitcoin is up fucking 550%. Like, these things are not safe because they're tied to narratives that are in the XRP army community mostly. And yeah, I think a lot of people want to vote for these and want me to cover them for like the sense of security and hope. Like, you want me to say like something that sounds nice, right? And there's times where I do say really harsh or like funny comedic things about altcoins, and then they do very well, you know? But the point here is that like, these, I think, are more distractions away from the original thing that got you into this, right? Like, you probably heard about Flare because of XRP, right? So like, just, I guess the takeaway here in the words of wisdom is these are the distractions away from you just investing more in the original, like in the thing. Just invest in XRP. Don't get too caught up in this stuff. And I think it's proven why. But anyways, with that being said, the TA here is the 786 break is going to send you up, and we have about a 5%, a 5 cent level to keep in mind in that case. After 5 cents, sky's the limit, because technically there is no chart to work with. So I suspect maybe you have a move to 32 cents. And if that does initiate, then you get the 1000% move that you get in a lot of other altcoins anyways. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're going to get much better than that unless we're talking about over $20 XRP. But if XRP hits like that higher than $15 to $20 range, then sure, Flare can make it up to the 30-cent levels. Let's get to one that I didn't cover last week, but it was part of my rotation. So funny, right? Last week I talked about Vitho. I believe just briefly, because I was comparing, what was I saying? I don't want to lie to you. I was talking about Trump was the distraction when you could be looking at something like Vitho. That's like literally what I said. I was like, I used it as not a comparison, but it's just like yeah. And I get it, for a moment, Trump was doing really good, the coin, but like, how many hours after my podcast was uploaded did it already have that flash correction? And then people started just dumping, right? And now today, I don't know where it's trading at. It's probably like $27, $26 but Vitho, actually, off of that red pill, right now we're at 160. There was one time where it was up 360. So that's a pretty solid move. And that's not like props to me or anything. Like, I've been in this play for a long time now. So it wasn't a call I was trying to make. I'm not trying to make it sound like that. It was just hilarious that that was the example I used. The example of the veto against Trump, and why I felt more like it was a smarter play. And I think what I was clearing up there was, if Trump was to make it to $130, which was the like ultimate extremes, you're still like, what, a 400% move, whilst the veto play, even from where it is now, is 400% back to the all-time high. So when I made that podcast, it would have been a 1000% move. And like, look at the fucking difference 1 week makes with altcoins, right, guys? So T Fuel is where we were. Oh, this trend line is so cool. Like, I don't know why Sometimes we have really long-term macro trend lines that play out nicely. And you'll see one up here that's kind of weird, where it was like a splayed out that had this, I guess you could technically call it like the apex right here at the absolute bottom in August. And then we've pivoted since. And now there is a clear support going on right there. But we have also been getting rejected on the outside of this trend line. If I was to pull up the daily chart, see what I mean? God, these planes just keep coming and coming and coming. What's going on? We're paying attention to the white trend line. Sorry if adding this additional one is confusing you, but we had this pop up after the C19 crash. We got back above it. We rode on the outside of this trend line for a long time. I know it doesn't seem, no emojis now. It seems like a little bit of time, but it wasn't. It was 200 days, so 6 months before we went to the final surge into alt season. It's funny. And let me look at when that, oh, look at that. So this is like January 26th, like right about now. And this moved up oh my God, that's fucking crazy. This moved up 2,000% in 2 months, by the way. So if it was to do that now, it would be like the end of March going up past $1, which it's never done before. I'm not saying that well, I'm just saying that's like kind of interesting timing, how we stalled out and then just shot up in a straight line right into February and March. But yeah, we're trapped in this kind of resistance line that has then, since the bear market, has been playing a very pivotal role. And we just got rejected off of it with like a wick, pretty much. And it's time to break through it. So I suspect if we can get back above this and no longer treat it as a resistance, this could be a bounce point. And with crypto, by the way, we can see something like this happen, where it's just a straight line sort of deal. In the midst of this, we had days where it didn't look like a lot. You know, we just going 11%, 12%, but a lot adds up after a couple weeks. This was a 40% candle, barely looks like anything, right? Here we had a 36%, 43%. Wild. So that could kind of be the essence of what we're moving into next month. All right, I'll drop that here. But the big move that I'm looking for is the 888 fib. I wouldn't say like absolute sell level, but one thing I'm looking for is at least the 888, and we have to definitely keep a mind on this level right here, which has been a majority of the top. Most of this distributional top was a rejection around 37 cents. Definitely keep that in mind. We were in the year of the dragon. We did not see that fire symbolism roll over into this. And it's interesting because, again, there might be something more for like the theta being the watery color symbolism and T-fuel being the fire. There could also be some alchemical conversation going on there. I don't have the time to decode it now, but it would be fascinating to explore that. But next big move would make sense into 38 cents. Kids next door screaming, geez. My God. It's always something. There's always a noise. There's always something going on. Got a helicopter. Somebody sounds like they're dying outside. All right, let's wrap this one up. We have Theta Fuel pretty much anticipating a move up to around 38 cents if we could break 11. So it's that 382 fib. Once we could clear that 382 fib, I think we'll quickly go through there. And if you look at how long it took us to swipe through the level we're at, literally trading now, and to this, it was 20 days. We just need that liquidity to roll over from Bitcoin. Let's look at Zilliqa, the final countdown. Yes, I did not cover this last week, even though this is a position that I have a little bit of. And the reason I didn't cover it is because there wasn't too much to say. It's in alignment with a lot of other charts. And funny enough, you see this fractal right over here? We had the C19 crash. It rose above and then it chopped. And then right off that same level we're trading at now, we had another straight line breakout. This concluded in April too, pretty much identical time to Bitcoin. So I want to think that this will probably follow Bitcoin very closely. And the symbolism to me almost looks like a snake. So could this be the year that Zilliqa like becomes relevant again? I don't know. It had a crazy bear market and then a really amazing run up from the C19 correction, a 6,000% move. But that doesn't feel fun to live through, right? So I'm not promoting this as a solid investment by any means. It's still pretty much at the lows of the bear market. So there's a buying opportunity here, but I don't like the sketchy peak that it had. I do remember selling on that peak. You probably heard me talk about it before. De-risked it completely. I believe I probably took like 60% of my profits. And from where we are now is 1,000% move. So this is in alignment with like the flare situation. Like, I don't know if I would recommend investing anything in this, but the move that it has and the potential could very much be like still a 900 to 1,000% move. As for price discovery, it would be amazing if we can see ZIL do that. But if you look at where the cycle in 2018 ended, and then you look at where it ended in 2021, it was a huge double top. Then we had this pump up again, and it was pretty much at the same level. So it seems that ZIL doesn't want to push through the 25-cent level. Although I would love for it to. I would. We just have to see how this alt season goes. And if it gets extended more deeper into the year, past this June, July timeframe, then for sure we can see ZIL break into price discovery. But we just won't know until we get there. One step at a time, as always. So we're trading at 105K Bitcoin right now. I gave you guys the whole play to anticipate for this upcoming week. Federal Reserve is going to do what they do. I'm not really too much paying attention to that. I think like the Trump effect is still very much hypnotizing on the world stage. The market's happy to just know what's going on now, to get that week of policy out of the way. And now I think the whole world is getting very confident with investing because of what he came out and brought up with the US becoming the crypto and artificial intelligence capital of the world. That right there is a big statement to make, and it's going to make investors get very comfortable now speculating again. So everything in the AI sector, I think, is probably going to do very, very well. But I wouldn't gamble too much, guys. Still stick to your investment thesis, stick to your wealth plan. Don't get too fancy right now. Enjoy this phase of the bull run. Don't get crazy with the leverage trading. That's not worth it. Don't get into meme coins that are just launching out of nowhere and then getting mad when there's a rug pull. Stay safe. So we're going to let this week play out. We got 105K Bitcoin. If we can get that on the weekly close, I think that'd be amazing. And then we'd be likely pushing up past 110 into like February 2nd is kind of my timing there. I would suspect around February 2nd, 3rd into February 4th, Bitcoin should be moving up. But we'll have a midweek update if anything else occurs in the meantime. I appreciate and I'm grateful for every single one of you. Wishing you all a beautiful rest of your weekend in the Matrix. Much love.